Well, Labour were out and proud today in every way with their new big plan. It's going to be 8 billion quid a year for their great British energy company. This will be a state company. And it's all aiming to get our electricity generation by 2030 to be carbon neutral. Well, what was interesting, and I'm joined by Tom Burke, chairman of climate think tank E3G. What was interesting, Tom, you've had Starmer going out around the country, some relatively junior figures in the Labour Party appearing on national media. Ed Miliband was supposed to be the mastermind behind Labour's energy policy, nowhere to be seen.
Oh, I don't think there's nowhere to be seen. I think he's been around.
Right, well, I didn't see him.
Well, he's not. Well, that you can't blame Ed for that. Ed made a speech, actually, just the other week, made a big speech on it, so it's not that he's nowhere to be seen. Now, does he attract media attention? That's not up to him.
No, fair point. So the big thing here, Tom, is it actually even credible or possible that by 2030 we're going to have carbon
If we wanted to
neutral?
do it, is it an engineering possibility? Yes. Could we do it if we wanted to? Yes, we could. We'd have to do a lot of other things than the engineering, but yeah, we do an awful. We're pretty clever in this country. If we set our mind to doing something, we can do it. So I don't think that's the question now. It's a question: will we be able to do it, and are we on course to doing it? Well, I think, but so far we're not on course to doing it. This government has not done a particularly good job of doing what we could do if we set our mind to it. The question remains to be seen whether a Labour government would do better.
You see, I wonder whether the only way you could even get anywhere near this is just to import more energy. Because you look at it, and the last full year we've got figures for 2022. So we import 40% of all energy. We import 13% of our electricity. And when we import stuff, we say, there's no carbon dioxide emissions. So really, I just wonder, and it's a bit like steel making and many other arguments, aren't we just conning ourselves?
Well, I don't think we're conning ourselves. I think we're not putting in the effort we need to get to where we say we want to get to. And, we can do this stupidly or we can do it smartly. And you and I have talked before about, well, if you build nuclear power stations, that's not a very smart way to do it. If you insulate
Well, you say that. Yeah, go on.
Well, you didn't disagree with me, as I recall.
My worry with...
Maybe changing your mind. You're allowed to do that.
Look, nuclear's fine, but we ain't going to have it by 2030.
That's absolutely true. We certainly can agree about that. The key real thing is, what can you do fastest and quickest that will drive people's bills down soonest? And that, for an incoming Labour government, driving bills down and incomes up will be their core priority. So what can you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is make every single building in this country leak tight, because we've got the... Sorry?
New build.
No, every single building. New buildings, all the buildings we've got, they should be critical national infrastructure. They're the leakiest buildings in Europe. That really reduces our competitiveness. I'm talking about not just homes, I'm also talking about all of our small and medium-sized enterprises where growth is going to come from. We're making them less competitive because we're not focusing on the thing that would get bills down fastest, be cheapest to do and easiest to do in terms of all the other things.
With the right houses, I get it. With old houses, it's more difficult. But what about this other idea of floating wind farms? Am I really reading this?
Well,
floating wind, how does that work?
It works exactly the same way as anything else that floats. So now, how does it work? The real issue, what it really helps you with, is people do worry a bit, I think a lot unnecessarily, but they do worry about the availability of land for renewables. One of the things, if we're going to do this, we've got to make it a thing about how do we get a technology that we can export? How do we do things that are actually going to make Britain a manufacturing and industrial nation again? This is exactly the kind of idea you want to do it. Now, is it doable? Of course it's doable. Are we going to be short of ocean? Not in the near future.
No, that's true. But we're still going to need gas, aren't we? We're still going to need fossil fuels for when wind in particular is not doing the business.
Actually, again, if we do stupid things, yes, we will. If we do smart things, and what we do is we turn off about £500 million worth of electricity every year because $500 billion of electricity because we can't move it south to where it's needed.
Yeah.
If we, instead of doing that...
The cost of that is massive.
Well, the cost of... Look, we're going to spend $1.8 trillion in the world next year getting the oil out of the ground. So doing anything to do with energy is expensive. So there's
but we will need fossil fuel backup. When a big anticyclone sits over the UK in February and wind is producing at the minute 2%, 3% on a bad day, even with better interconnectors, it still will be too little.
No, interconnectors are important, but actually what we really need to do is make with the electricity we're not using now from our wind farms, current wind farms, we need to turn that into hydrogen and use the hydrogen to run our gas-fired power stations.
Well, look,
to make up for that gap.
Some of Britain's biggest, wealthiest, most successful entrepreneurs are working on that very project. But we're not there yet. Tom Burke, as ever, an interesting debate. I'll make a prediction, folks. The only way Labour could get to that 2030 figure is if we start importing ever more electricity. And would you believe there's even talk now of importing electricity from the United States of America? You really couldn't make it up.